I'm so glad to have you all here with my dear friend Amber and I. And I think let's just take a second to do a little breath. We're in LA, we're going to do the breath to come in. But it's also because, we're coming from all over the place from our days, from traffic. And it's just really nice to kind of get into our body. So if we could just close our eyes for a second and just really allow yourself to just take a really deep breath in through the nose. Sigh it out. Just allow the shoulders to drop away from the ears, just indicating the day is over. Now it's time to just rest and receive and enjoy. Taking another deep breath in. Sighing it out even louder. We're breaking free from the good girl right now, baby. Take another deep breath in. Sigh it out. Beautiful. And just allow yourself to just settle into you for just a second. Just allowing the belly to soften. So relaxing the belly here, just unclenching the grip of the belly. Just allowing the glutes to unclench and relax in your seat. And we're just really indicating a shift in the day. We're indicating a shift in energy and just really allowing ourselves to be in this present moment, to relax and just receive. Putting our hands on our heart here. This is the reason for the season. Our heart is why we're all here. And just tuning into the heart. And just taking a last really deep clearing breath in. Deep breath in. Sigh it out. Now we're going to take off our clothes. Just kidding. Just kidding. So I am. Hey. Oh yeah, Zibby. Mom's here. Mom Zibby's here. So I'm so excited to be talking to my dear friend Amber about Lovable for so many reasons, because I love you so much. And because I relate so much to your journey, all of the parts except for John, so all of the bad parts, I'm very much relating to. I first met Amber, who went to college with me at Miami of Ohio, in New York City, when we interviewed you for Choose Wonder Over Worry. Mm-hmm. And during that time, we were at very different phases. You were married to your ex-husband. I was married to my ex-husband. And we were kind of having this like parallel path of lying to ourselves about where we were in our lives and where we were in our relationship. And it's just such a beautiful experience to see you really in your truth and in your majesty in things. So there's a few sections I wanted to call out tonight that just feel really relevant and resonant to a lot of the themes in the book. So I'm really excited to share this with you guys and have our girl share a little bit more about her experience. So the first one was the part about the turquoise box. And so the part about the turquoise box, as some of you know, so the sliver of the story I conveniently left out is this. We didn't find the box nestled in the desert like a lost treasure. We found it sitting on a table in a corner of the hotel. I don't know what's real or not anymore. What's real is this. We stole the motherfucking turquoise blue box. Then I used it as a symbol to prove our love was real, meant to be. Even though my inner knowing was desperately trying to warn me that I'd chosen yet another man who could never give me the love and connection I so deeply desired. I still needed a sign to convince myself I was on the right path. Can you share a little bit more about that experience and sort of what came through there?
Yeah, I think when we find ourselves in a moment where something doesn't feel like it fits, maybe we're in a relationship that doesn't feel aligned, maybe we've outgrown a part of ourselves, a job, there can be many moments where we find ourselves feeling trapped or stuck. And maybe leaving feels too scary. Maybe making a change feels too scary. And so in those moments, what do? Well, we can become very convincing with ourselves. We can hold on to hope that something might change. If only X, then I'll feel connected. Or we can look for signs. And I was at this point, not only was I very much in this convincing narrative of knowing he wasn't my person deep down was too scary to admit. So I became, it was like, our wedding was this performance because I needed to create this love story because I wasn't feeling that connection in the relationship. And then I was always looking for signs that we were right for each other, that we were meant to be together. And so I think, when things don't feel aligned and true, we've got to find reasons to stay if we're too scared to go.
And it to me was such a representation of when we look so far outside of ourselves to be like, I'm okay. It's like this sign, and we all look for signs. All my girlies, we're all looking for signs. Me and my sister.
333.
Yeah, literally. 333. He's my husband. This is it.
1111.
Yeah, literally. Tarot TikTok lady said this is it.
Lionsgate portal.
Yeah, honestly. And I realized that in my own life too. It's like the more I'm looking outside for the validation, the less true it feels for myself. And I felt like it was such a good representation of the process that you were in, of this deep and this quiet knowing that you weren't where you were meant to be, but you were kind of desperate for the outside, which was such a huge part of it.
Yeah. And for those who haven't read the book yet, just to give a little context, I was guided through this visualization where a little girl handed me a turquoise blue box, and a ray of light came into my heart and then went out into the room. And then I just had this like very potent and special connection with this turquoise blue box. Many years later, my ex and I were in Morocco staying at a hotel. And the story we told people is that we found that turquoise box nestled in the desert. And it was this like symbol that we were meant to get married there. When the truth is that we saw it in the corner of the hotel and we stole it. And so it was like the reality of what happened and the story that we created to try and convince ourselves that what we had was meant to be were so drastically different. And I feel like there are times in our lives where we may be in the story of something because the reality is too painful to look at. And so why do we tell ourselves stories? Why do we look for signs? And when are we doing that? I think that's a moment to clock when we might be self-abandoning or playing pretend.
Beautiful. There was another part that I really loved.
Can I read it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sister. I'll be chill. And then I'll explain it.
You're already doing it, she says. As you're stepping into your authenticity, you're losing people and relationships are changing, which is all very normal. The healthy part of tolerance is being able to tolerate the outcomes and consequences of you living authentically. So instead of tolerating bad behavior, disconnection, and so on, you learn to tolerate the discomfort of someone being disappointed in you or someone feeling hurt as a result of your choices. And that doesn't mean we have to be savages, of course. We can allow someone's hurt to touch us. We can care about people's experiences, just not at the expense of our own.
And being someone that was self-abandoning for so long, what was it like to sort of reclaim that belief in yourself that you were worthy of having your own experience outside of just prioritizing someone else?
Yeah, to take it back a little bit, I don't know how familiar everyone here is with the story, but 4 years ago while married, I met the person that I knew I was meant to be with, who was not my husband. And that was really scary because I had this deep knowing of, oh, this is what love and connection is supposed to be like. And meeting him felt like this mirror where suddenly I woke up to all the ways I was unfulfilled and disconnected in my marriage and had been for a very long time, and how I was in this convincing cycle. And so as the, part of my journey as considering myself a good girl or someone who really was into harmony and didn't want to let anyone down, and the most terrifying thing was disappointing someone, the edge for me in all of this has been learning to tolerate people being disappointed in my choices or disapproving of my choices. And when you decide to leave your marriage basically for someone else, people have a lot of feelings about that. And, it stirs up all kinds of people's wounds around love and like shame in our culture and how, people have a lot of feelings. And so my inner good girl was like, wow, this is very scary because, we're wired to want to belong. And suddenly I don't feel like I belong, or I feel like people are mad at me. And so, as I learned from this was actually I'm like, this is my therapist. This is my therapist friend.
Vienna.
Yeah, Vienna. She was like, instead of tolerating you being so disconnected in your marriage and you guys having a sexless relationship and, everything that's unfulfilling there, instead of tolerating that, which you've been so good at tolerating, why don't you learn to tolerate just other people being upset about you doing what's right and true for you? And so that was kind of the big jump and shift that ended up being deeply liberating, and helped me move from a place of self-abandonment to really making self-honoring choices. Come on in, get comfy.
Come in. The water's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got two over.
Hello.
Welcome.
We're not late.
No, you're good.
And I know in this, you talk a little bit about parts, and that's probably something that was really supportive of
Yeah.
kind of working with the part of you that was so afraid of disappointing people and being the good girl. Can you talk a little bit about how that was so helpful for you in this process of reclaiming your sovereignty?
Yeah. Who here is familiar with parts work? Okay. For those who aren't, a big part of my healing journey has been being able to identify different parts within me and understand their fears, their perspectives, and, kind of like what's in the way and why they're stuck. And by being able to connect with that part of myself and also know that alongside maybe my good girl part or my fearful part or my perfectionist part, I also have like a wise, true self. And if I can understand the difference between the two of them, I can make sure that I'm making decisions from my wise, true self. So for example, in this tolerance, this like good girl part of me, part of my work was connecting with like, hey, good girl, who's afraid of disappointing people, and having a conversation, learning to dialogue with those different parts of me to understand, okay, well, I'm afraid of this, and this is where that comes from. And, this happened in childhood, and this created this pattern and this way of coping. But also acknowledging you and hearing you, wise, true self believes that like, ultimately in life we have to make the honoring choices. So like that to answer your question? It's like understanding our different parts and how they are either supporting us or holding us back can be really powerful in helping us make choices that are right and true for us.
Beautiful. And in the chapter, I loved You Heal in All Directions. I really loved that title. I just loved the concept. It was so beautiful. And in the end of the chapter, you said you heal in all directions. Every time shame comes knocking on my door, I remind myself of this. You heal in all directions. I may have been the one who ripped off the bandage, exposing the wound, but that doesn't mean the bandage was meant to stay on. It was going to come off eventually. I'm just the one who pulled it off first. Of course, it hurts and is uncomfortable as hell right now, but the wound is exposed. The wound can breathe. With time, the wound can heal. Can you talk a little bit about that? The wound heals in all, or just the healing and the healing in all directions?
Yeah. When I told my grandma, after I left and I went to visit my mom and grandma, I told my grandma the whole story of what happened. And she said to me, you can't tell anyone this story. And I was like, I'm gonna write a book about it. And she's like, dear God, please do not write a book about it. People are going to judge you so intensely. And I'm judging you because your grandpa left me. And so she had a lot of feelings come up for her about it. And, we talked about it and we kind of unpacked that. My grandma and I were very, very close and always close. And then like a year later, she called me and she said, I just want to say that I'm really proud of you for doing the brave but hard thing. And I realized that I would have left your grandfather, but I didn't have the emotional strength or the financial resources to do so. And so I stayed, even though I knew he was having affairs, and even though I knew he was like out, up to no good. And I waited for him to be the one to betray me. When I was betraying myself the entire time. And she it was
Grandma.
This, I know.
Yeah, what's up?
I know.
Go Grandma.
Yeah. And so it was this kind of moment of me of whoa, we heal in all directions. I almost gave her permission to look more honestly at her story and even take responsibility for her part in things. The fact that she was staying and waiting for him to leave, and kind of it led to all of these openings in our family. And she even in later conversations was listen, every woman in our family line has been left by a man in a betraying way. But also if you would ask any of them, none of them were actually happy. And so it's I think when we, Terry Real, there's a quote at the end of the book that I'd love to read really quick. He says, family dysfunction rolls down from generation to generation like a fire in the woods, taking down everything in its path until one person in one generation has the courage to turn and face the flames. That person brings peace to their ancestors and spares the children that follow. And I think I realized in this journey, in this story that I lived, that by me making those different choices and breaking so many wounds in our family around relationships and love, it was giving permission in the current family line to choose differently and even just acknowledge choices that were made. So yeah, we heal in all directions.
And just like your grandma, when you first said to her, she was like you don't tell anyone, you kind of keep it quiet. And then you even had other people that were in judgment and projecting on you after the experience. And I was surprised about that in my divorce too, that how many people got so activated by it.
Oh yeah.
Like people were jealous. And then, you know, it was also, then they were, it was a very interesting experience because I didn't expect that. So what was that experience like for you, especially being a good girl? Like, did you ever have fear? Like, how did you work through those projections, those judgments, and did it change your relationships?
Yeah, that was probably the scariest thing for me. What are people going to think about this? And people had a lot of feelings about it. I was a narcissistic sociopath to someone who I thought was a friend.
Wow.
Wow. Very selfish. Like the range of like thoughts and opinions was incredibly paralyzing for me at first. And I thought, okay, if I can explain the situation, explain what happened in detail, help them understand my side of the story, then they'll understand and I'll be okay. But I feel like the more I explained myself, the less they understood. And it just didn't, make me feel better. And it didn't create the clarity I was hoping for. So ultimately what I realized is that no one needed to get it but me. And their response and reaction to it told me a lot about them and their own wounds and pain than mine. And I'm grateful now because as I've started sharing the story online and on Instagram, some of these reels have gone very crazy and found like traditional wife communities, which I just learned about. And I had I remember like
trad wives?
Trad wives. I'd never heard of this until yesterday, but I mean, I go on some people's profiles where they write these crazy comments and it's like pro patriarchy. And like, I believe that, gender should be like, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is where
they're like
these are the corners of the internet that these videos are finding. But I'm glad I had the experience of kind of wrestling it with people close to me before I had a larger audience, because I then finally got over the fact that I don't need to convince anyone. And also I can have compassion for their own pain and wounds around love, because that's all that's, coming up for them. And like, oh, wow, maybe someone left them in a really painful way, or maybe their parents' divorce was really painful for them. And my story is just bringing that up for them. So I can hold compassion for their pain and not take it personally, which was easier said than done.
Yeah, honestly. You're like, I exactly just got there right now. You go to the trad wife page and you're just like, you know what? I'm holding her pain. So you had this beautiful experience of falling in love and finding John and, moving through some of the good girl things and just kind of having this beautiful experience. And then you guys are together. And one of the sections I wanted to bring up was related to the relationship and being together, because, when you hear the story, it's just so magical. You both are just so incredible, and I've spent time with you and it's so beautiful to see you. But I think when we fall in love and we have this idea of what love is, we think it's conflict free and we think it's just all, easy and just, it's the honeymoon. And I loved this part that you talked about. And just, we're so vulnerable. You said, John and I sit in silence for a long while in the car, and I wonder if this means we're not a good fit. We're supposed to be in the honeymoon phase of our relationship, and we're already screaming at each other. This surely has to be a bad sign, a red flag, right? And I just wanted you to kind of break it down, like what that experience was, and then what you've learned about love and the process of understanding how conflict plays a role.
Yeah. So I thought leaving the marriage was going to be the hard part. What I didn't anticipate was the learning how to stay. And learning how to stay because I had always just made safe choices in love, because I had a childhood where my father had a traumatic brain injury. I didn't meet him that I remember until I was 8 years old. In that meeting, I longed for connection from him. I longed for him to be able to meet me and attune to me and love me, and he was not capable. And that was very painful for me. And so what I did is I ended up making safe choices in love unconsciously, because I didn't want to have to feel those abandonment anxieties again and the pain of that longing. And so now here I was on the other side of broken free of, I'm not going to just choose safe love. I want love that is safe, yes, but also extraordinary. And I felt like I had found that with John. But then that was terrifying, because what if it goes away? What if I was in a 9-year sexless relationship. And so on the other side of that, I felt so disconnected from that part of myself. John was not disconnected from that part of himself. And so I was like, oh God, if I'm not good in the bedroom, what if I do I know how to,
You're like, I got to pick up Cosmo ASAP.
I don't know how to do this.
I need to catch a mag.
If I can't do this right, is he gonna, and so that all of the insecurities came to the surface that I thought I had long outgrown. I felt like a 15-year-old girl again. And so I was hyper vigilant in the beginning, very like meeting all these parts of myself that I like had intellectually processed and I was like, yeah, I have abandonment stuff. I could like tell you all of it, but I hadn't somatically processed it. And so now anytime like we hit an edge, I was like going into reaction in my body. And so that brought me to a great therapist. Actually, that I feel like you recommended. I'm like, no, yeah. Anyway,
She's like, don't call me out.
everything. Anyway, but and I like went in there and I was like, we got into a fight about soap and like and does this mean our relationship is over? And she was like, no, conflict isn't why relationships break up. It's a lack of repair. And so this is what happens when couples shack up. She's like, I'd be more surprised if you weren't fighting over soap. And so it was a big, learning for me around conflict, because growing up, when I saw conflict did like lead to very dangerous situations. I once saw my, stepdad strangling my mom. It was conflict was very scary. And so how could we navigate conflict in healthy ways, which is really, I think, a growth edge for both of us.
And such a huge thing that I think as a collective, we're understanding a little bit more and a little bit better how the importance of conflict repair in friendships and in relationships. And, the sex part was so beautiful and so vulnerable. And it's so funny because in the inside edge of the book, it's like, maybe in another life, she thought, and it was related to your sexless marriage. And I remember thinking that one time too, at the end of my marriage. I was like, maybe next lifetime I'm going to be a priestess, sex goddess. And I was like, until then, here we are, and just kind of rode the wave. But what was that experience like for you? And like, how do you understand sex and the importance of it in relationships now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was always important to me, but it was a weird thing to be on the other side of that marriage and be like, how did I get here? Because like, that is important to me. And how did I convince myself that it wasn't? But, I think now it's just, I think sex is such a beautiful gateway to intimacy and depth and connection. And it's also where there's a lot of vulnerability and where there's these like edges to explore. And so, I think avoiding that in that relationship was in some ways safer and convenient, because I guess you're not touching those vulnerabilities. But it's really been like, how do you really let yourself be fully seen, which can be scary. And so it's been really, I think, a journey of like being seen and also receiving and it's like getting naked.
Yeah, that's right. It's also too, when we think about the good girl programming, there's a lot of relationship to that too, of like denying pleasure, denying yourself that experience. And in the chapter, it was so beautiful how you talked about your body, and I'm someone, I talk very publicly about my body journey, just hating my body my whole life, etc. And finding a place of just enjoyment and pleasure in my body has been just so beautiful. And your vulnerability around that was so real and authentic. And I think something so many women feel and experience. It's like, you could call in the love of your life and then you're like, am I enough?
Yeah.
Am I beautiful enough? So can you talk a little bit about that journey for you?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's been a lifelong journey for me, learning to love my body. It's interesting to be postpartum. You have a kid and it's like, you don't have time to like think about your body. It's like, you barely have time to shower. At least the first couple of months, I like thought it was going to be so challenging postpartum, big changes. And I was like, wait, I actually don't care about my body suddenly. This is a relief. But yeah, I think the combination of social pressure and just, I think my body was a way of control when I felt like my environment that I was raised in was very uncontrollable and chaotic. And then just the enoughness story and how what I look like and how my body looks is tied to my worthiness and my lovability. And those two things were so linked for so long. And so I think with John, it was like, oh no, if I don't look like these people that he dated, or if I don't fit this like perfect mold, then I'm not enough and then I'm not lovable. And so, but that was always so externalized. So I was always like looking for evidence from others to know that I am enough. And it was really just a journey of having to continue to like come back to self. But I think it's a lifelong thing.
Beautiful. I'd love for you to read this section.
Yeah. John and I will always have work to do on ourselves, but our love is a safe place to address our blind spots, triggers, and wounds. I once believed I had to be fully healed to be ready and available for love. But as my friend Vienna says, since it's relationships that wound us, it must be through relationships that we heal. I wrote that for you.
But Vienna's name's there.
No, I literally
so
thought of
that's-
her as I was writing that. Yeah.
I love you. It's funny because I was reading that and I was like, that's me in my life right now. I was like feeling it. But can you share a little bit more about that to the audience?
Well, I remember, I think you spoke to this at some point.
Yeah.
That's why I thought of you. But I hear a lot from people like, oh, I got to really like work on myself and I need to like have it all together to call in my person. Or I have to like work through all my stuff and da 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 da. And it's like, yeah, of course, do the self-work. The self-work is important, but also we wound in relationships. So like we heal in relationships, and having a safe container where someone's able to meet you there is just such a profound container for healing and growth. And like, you know, John and I have to be touching each other's edges. We have to be triggering each other. We have to be like in that journey together to even know what needs to surface and be worked through. And so I think there's just like such a myth that like we have to heal alone, when really we can heal together.
Beautiful.
If the person's willing to go there with us, of
Yeah,
course.
totally.
Which is key.
On my Q&A, I'm like, ladies, he has to be involved in this too. Last part that I wanted to share, and then we can move into some Q&A in a second.
Should I read that one too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
My life changed when I realized this truth. Being good wasn't the answer. Being honest was. Going with the flow didn't bring me peace. It left me disconnected from myself. I had to stop asking, who do they need me to be? And start asking, who do I want me to be?
Preach, sister. And who is that you want to be?
Who do I want to be? Ooh. I just want to be, you know, be for like, be. Yeah, be.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And I knew you wanted to read one last section, I think.
Did I?
I think you said that, maybe. Just kidding.
I was going to read a chapter, but we've done enough readings.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, you want to do some Q&A?
Sure.
Okay, perfect. So we'll do some Q&A from the audience. So if anyone has a question that they want to ask, don't be shy. If you want to have a confessional, share about a lovership. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually finished the book already.
Thank you. Yay.
One part that I found so powerful and so relatable was how you just connected your family story. That really hit for me as somebody who's held a lot of space for my mother and my grandmother's stories. And then seeing, you know, where I am now. Which I've definitely had a lot of love in my life, but how safe or how authentic that is.
Yeah.
And every time you get the courage to start over again, and then you find yourself in a similar place.
Yeah.
How do you get that courage again?
Yeah. Yeah, I can, my mom used
Also Miami, Ohio.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Really? Oh, yeah.
Red Hawks, baby.
Which is an interesting place.
Yeah, I was going to say where the trauma began.
Yeah, no, truly.
It was like the root of it. Just kidding. College was fun.
You know, my mom used to always joke because I'd be like, this is it. I've like got it. I've like found like I've reached the thing. And that like applied to like, this is the relationship, or like, this is the job or the situation that I want. And I was like always searching for that thing, so that like I had that thing and that stability and that consistency. And then I'd be like, okay, I'm good. Yeah. And so what I hear in that is, you know, I think I had to like let go of any end point and know that like life is just a collection of continuous brave choices that are going somewhere and somewhere and somewhere and somewhere and somewhere. And so I think we might cling or search for certainty because the uncertainty is so scary and uncomfortable. And so I wonder how like the opportunity to like the discomfort of that and sitting with the discomfort of that and breathing into the discomfort of that is where I've at least found like relief. Like John and I separate, but we've moved, gosh, we had like mold and then there was fires and now we don't like Brooklyn. And it's been like 19 moves and it's like, when is this ending? And, you know, I keep thinking we're making these like important leaps, and not to like, I know we're talking about like family of origin stuff, but like and it's just like, when does it end? And it's just, at a certain point, it's just like surrender and be okay with the discomfort of not knowing. Has been, I feel like, the lesson of this moment, which applies to so many areas of our life.
If it's okay for me to add on.
Yeah.
I've kind of always known that I wanted to be a mother, but because of the ancestral challenges and traumas, I've had this decision that I don't want to do it unless I feel really safe and held in my partnership.
Yeah.
Now I'm really thinking about that at 37. Do I do this with my fiance who I don't feel 100% safe with? Or do I think about doing it alone?
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I hear that that's such a hard choice point, and I hear the weight that's in that for you. And I just want to, it's so courageous for you to be here, to name that, to say it out loud. We're all like holding space for you. We all want you to choose that what feels safe for you. So thank you for sharing that.
And I think it's okay to live the questions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful, babe.
But thanks for your story.
Thanks for opening us up.
Yeah.
What else? Yeah.
I imagine coming to these truths and also writing a book about it is deeply cathartic. You also gave birth to a son throughout this process.
Yeah.
So how did those weave into each other, and what was that experience like?
It was everything. Very full on. I wrote the book, took me 3 years to write. I didn't know when I was going to finish it. I just happened to hand it in like a month before my son was born, and then edits on it, which I didn't know when they would be due. I think I was like 4 weeks postpartum, and my publisher was like, by the way, in 2 weeks you're going to get edits back for your book, and they'll be due in 3 weeks. And I was like, what? So it was, it was this dance of just, this is so impossible, and I'm just going to like let it be impossible and just like try to show up for it the best that I can. And I mean, it was, the way I did edits on the book is I would nurse my son in the middle of the night. He would have reflux. So I would put him upright for 20 minutes. And in those 20 minutes, I would write it or edit an essay. It's like 1 a.m., 3 a.m., 5 a.m. I was like, but it like made me feel so alive. So like, yes, I was like on breastfeeding hormones, whatever those good hormones were, oxytocin like, and all the things. I was like, woo. So I was like, and like the aliveness of the writing, I think, and I wasn't, I'm thrilled to be a mother, but I wasn't the person that was like, I am here to be a mother. And so I think with that, or I should say more, I didn't anticipate, I had no idea what being a new mother was going to be like. And it was like, whoa, this is a lot. And so to feel still connected to my creativity and my voice and writing, which is the thing that I love the most, alongside probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. And also I had an emergency C-section, home birth gone bad, lost tremendous amounts of blood. It was like the healing of that. It added so much healing and vitality, I would say, to that postpartum process. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And Devin, you were there for parts of it.
I remember.
Yeah.
We'll do 2 more. Yeah, babe.
Knowing that we can also be unreliable narrators and ghost ourselves,
Yeah.
lie to ourselves.
Yeah.
When you're having the experience of writing the memoir, how do you trust that this is the truth?
I think we're always, I'm trying to think of how I want to answer. I mean, it's not the truth.
Yeah.
It's my truth. I even say, like in the author's note in the beginning, like I was never trying to tell a tell all. This is a tell mine. And it's not the whole story. It's just like my version of events. But I think when I lead writing workshops, I always tell people to first write a bad draft and then to write a brave draft. And in that bad draft, it's just like, get it out as quickly as you can. So your editor is not like, that's not good enough. Like the goal is to make it bad. And then in the brave draft, you go through and you ask, where can I be more honest? and where can I be more true? And so I think in the writing of this book, that those are two questions I was always asking myself. And like, I don't know if you've read the book yet, but I call myself out a lot. And I, lying about like I was so conscious of the stories I was telling myself in that, the edge for me is like, where can I be more honest and say what was really happening, not my story of what was happening. But like, do we always, I think we always are telling ourselves some story to some extent. So maybe in the next book, I'll know of a story I don't even know now. But hopefully not.
Who else? One more.
I'll go.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna talk, but I'm gonna talk. Hi. So I feel very seen by your book. It's crazy because we have a very similar story. I was not married, but I was dating someone for 6 years when I met someone, and exactly like you said, just instant electricity. And I just remember like constantly like praying to God and being like, please God, like get this guy out of my mind. And the story goes on, and eventually I ended up cheating on my then boyfriend. And the next day told him like, we need to break up. Like I need a break. Like something is going on with me. This is not who I am. And then just thinking like, oh, I'm just gonna like get this guy out of my mind. I'll date him a couple times and then I'll go back to my ex. And now he's my husband. We have 2 kids. And
The new guy?
yeah, the new guy.
I love how you're like, I'm going to get him out of my head and go on some dates. I'm like, okay.
Yay.
And it's interesting because I still think about my ex in a sense of like wanting closure with him and just feeling so sorry for what I did to him. And it was 8 years ago. And I mean, he's now married as a person. And I reached out, and probably the last time that I reached out was 5 years ago during COVID because he's a doctor. And I was like, I really would love to like have coffee with you at some point. Like, just let me know when you're ready. And he's like, I'm still not ready.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting because 2 things, I guess. One is just having shame in my story, especially like, am I going to tell the truth with my children?
Yeah.
And then 2, will I ever get closure with my ex-boyfriend who I'm still, of course, I still have a strong place in my heart for him. Like we were best friends for 6 years,
Yeah.
So I'm curious, any advice? I know it's probably just like I need to get closure with myself. And it's like you said, it's like, it's on us to do the healing and trust that like he has also done his healing. We don't need to have this like meeting, like final meeting. And I haven't read your full book. I'm halfway through listening to it. So good. But did you ever have closure with your ex, or is it more so just like I need to do closure on myself and that's enough?
Yeah, I think you're onto something with the closure comes from you because, and I can relate that I felt bad and I felt shameful because, and that was actually for me. And it's like, I wanted him to tell me it was okay and that he was okay. But that's actually not even fair because that's not me considering him and his needs. That's me being like, tell me it's okay so I can feel better. And so I think the work came from like, okay, well, where does that shame come from? And like, why did I stay for so long? Okay, well, we live in a culture that tells us to stay no matter what. We, live in a society that breaking up is failure. And, for so long, people stayed in marriages for a very long time. And so there hasn't, we're now rewriting how relationships can work. And can we actually call a 6-year relationship a success? And like the ending, like sometimes growth means growing apart. How do we celebrate that more? So I think it's the opportunity is to like look at your own shame and look at the stories that you're carrying around that separation. And yeah, I think that's going to come from you being like, it's okay. It's okay that I hurt someone and that doesn't make me a bad person. That was a lot of the work that I had to do. And it's funny because I like kept trying to have closure conversations with him and he was actually open to them initially. And like, we'd have a closure conversation and I still wouldn't feel better. And so I'm like, maybe I have another conversation. Maybe if I tell him that like, I feel really like then, and he, they would feel good for a little while and he would admit some things and I would admit some things, but then it was like, nothing came of it because it was still my own shame that I couldn't let go of. And so I think that's part of your side of the street versus his.
What did it look like? Like, when's the last time that you talked to him? Obviously, knowing that the book is out.
Yeah. Well, I got flowers when August was born,
Oh, bless.
which was really sweet. But then I also found out 5 days later he made a mistake on all of the land paperwork and needed me to redo them. So
That's
I was
hilarious.
like, what was the motivation for the flowers? Anyway, that's not the point. Then I called her. I sent him a message to tell him about the book, and he was not thrilled about the book. And so I think he had said at one point, and it's just like full transparency, he had said at one point, like, I know who I married. Of course you're going to write a book about this. Like, of course. Then like 4 years later, I wrote the book about it. And he was now remarried. And so he was not thrilled for her or for him. And so they decided to block me, and his whole family has unfollowed me on Instagram, which I think is very healthy. So, and I have to say, it was like very freeing to know he was not following me on social media as I was posting some of these videos. I was like, this is great. This is like better for everyone, because I was filtering and the things that I was saying. So like, okay, he's gonna watch this. I'm gonna make him feel.
You're like, now listen, guys. Now that he's not here.
So, that's Otherwise, I kind of felt like we could have like kept kind of being nice to each other from afar, and this like, oh, congrats, you got married. Okay.
Yeah, totally.
It's like at some point it's like healthy for it to end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah.
I'm curious how the part I haven't read the book yet. But I felt what you said about how we heal in relationship was really beautiful. That how you have to do all that healing on your own. I'm curious how you also feel about like when the relationship ends. What does healing between those two people look like? Like, I know you just talked about it a little bit, but I'm curious if you could say like more about how you think about that in terms of your own healing, and then how you're healing with someone who you shared these things with or didn't share these things with.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing about, from at least what my experience was, is that I felt like I grieved the relationship while I was in it, and I stayed much longer than I wanted to. And in that, in the last probably like 4 or 5 years, I had a lot of resentments building without even realizing resentments were building. And I like was feeling my frustration and anger and sadness and like not feeling met, and like by making these requests and like, and so I like really like sat in that. And so when the relationship ended, I felt like I was like, oh, now I just feel at peace because I finally did the thing that I knew I was supposed to do a while ago, but was afraid to do. And so, I think for me, it was actually like, oh, okay, my inner self was like, finally. And I expected to feel grief, but I didn't. And that's when I realized I was like, oh, I was already grieving for a long time. And so, the healing for me was actually like had already happened. And the healing was kind of like the letting go. For him, I can't speak. I don't know what his healing experience was like, but ours at least were very separate. He did, he made a comment when we were separating. I think it's even in the book where he was like, you can't emotionally caretake me anymore. Like, I need to like learn to be a father to myself, and I need to like learn to like do this without you being so concerned about my feelings. And so I think like we were a little entangled in that way, where it was like, where that was, now the healing was actually part of like his growth forward, was to like learn to really anchor into that.
Esther Perel talks about how women grieve in the relationship before they end it, and then men grieve after. And that's why they always come back, because they're grieving and then they kind of process it.
That's interesting.
Okay, yes, one more. Sweetie?
My question is, have you been surprised by reactions from anyone that is featured in your memoir? I read it today, cover to cover, and I obviously have just, like, there's so much about your story that I connect with, and a lot of what you shared with me along the way is about the vulnerability, including certain pieces and certain people, especially familial.
Yeah.
And talking about your grandmother's reaction.
Yeah.
So was there anyone that was featured, or even like your mother's response?
My mom is processing. Mom is definitely processing. I think it's been really, and her and I, before the book came out, I like walked through all of the scenes of the book. so she wouldn't be surprised. She does not recall that conversation. I
Mhm.
was like, what do you mean? I told you what this scene is like. And then like 2 days later, you came back to me and you're like, did you really need to include that scene? I was like, you don't remember that one? But I think she's just a little, my mom, loved my mom to death, like powerhouse woman in so many ways, but like the healing journey, I think it's also very generational, was not really like, she's like, healing, what's healing? Like, I didn't have time to heal. I was just trying to raise you and survive, And so
Again, your fault.
so yeah, it's brought up a lot for her, but I will say, like, she really honored, she knew my book launch was coming up, like really was like supportive and honoring of that. But yeah, I'm curious and it's been for me to like, okay, she's in feelings about this. I can let her be in feelings about this. I do not need to be responsible, or I don't have to take care of that. Like we're okay. We're two separate beings here. So yeah, it's been interesting.
Powerful.
Maybe it'll be in the next book.
Powerful.
Hi. One of the parts speaking about your mom that really touched me was when you spoke about what you learned about boundaries, going from things that she essentially would kind of need to do or change to things that only you actually had control over and power over.
Yeah.
But actually not having contact with my mom, and I've tried for many, many years to be able to make things work, and it's not a situation that I feel safe being around her.
Yeah.
But seeing you or reading you going through that, and like even though I'm still not in relationship with her, I can like imagine other relationships and ways that I can work on that very thing. Doing only what I need to do to have boundaries, as opposed to expecting or asking even necessarily specific things for the other person to do. It was very psychologically profound. And I haven't seen it put in that clear of a way in other writings. And I'm a therapist, and I was taught in grad school all about boundaries and everything. And it's really astounding how you were able to articulate that. And I just thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. I'm glad that spoke to you in that way. Yeah. Boundaries and requests. Oof. Not the same thing. Yeah. It's like, stop yelling. No, leave the room.
Thank you both so much for this amazing conversation.
Let's give our girl a hand.
Can we, I've been, oh, sorry, go ahead. I was like, can we take a photo of like,
We want to get of everybody.
Of the whole
like
room.
a selfie.
Yeah, I say selfie.
So everyone get ready for being
included.
included. Ellen DeGeneres at the Emmy style. Okay. Everybody, hands in the air. Ready? Oh, yeah.